Hey, welcome to the Ethics Experts. If it's your first time joining us, welcome. And if you're a returning subscriber, hey, bestie, hope you're having an amazing day. See what happens when you subscribe? You get a bonus greeting on every single episode. On this episode, we talk to Olaf Casperson. He's a chief compliance officer of a large multinational company across 60 different countries. So he has a lot of these international challenges and pushing out compliance and ethical behavior in different cultural jurisdictions. He's also made some really cool innovations on his team in terms of different archetypes that he's brought in and engaged. So hope you enjoyed this episode.
Welcome to the Ethics Experts, where we're elevating ethics and compliance and HR to the strategic level it's supposed to be.
So excited to have you on.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. I don't think we've met. I've seen your name in a number of the different conferences that I go to.
Yeah.
But it's great to meet you for the first time.
So what are you most passionate about in this space?
I'd say everything. I kind of got my start. I spent 21 years in the Air Force, and during that time, the one thing I did a lot of things. I was around aircraft maintenance, and I was around the Russians, and I was around a lot of things. But during that time, the one thing I asked myself or required of myself every morning was when I got up in the morning and was shaving, looking at myself in the mirror, that I was happy what I saw. And it was all about doing the right thing. At the time, I didn't think of it as ethics. That type of thing. But after 21 years in the military, I got out and got into trade compliance, which is not a real common, feeder line for ethics and compliance. But loved doing that, and it just kept going from there. I've been with HCLTech now for 9 years, starting again as their trade compliance officer, and then now being their chief ethics and compliance officer. But the same thing, my passion is making sure that I'm doing everything I can for my team and for the company, that we do things with integrity, with transparency. We respect the culture. HCLTech, I'm not sure if you're aware, we're 227,000 people.
Yeah.
Indian owned, 60 countries, and about 150 nationalities. So my success has always been based on culture.
Mm-hmm.
And even before the culture of the company, the culture of my team. I've got a Brazilian in North Carolina. I've got somebody from it's a Hispanic lady from here in the U.S. And then I've got a team in India, that's made up of multiple religions, right? Hindus, Muslims. So I've always known, and I have figured out very early, that I have to get the culture of my team right before I can do anything for the company.
I think a lot of people get that backwards,
Yeah. And so that's where I am today. I've been, like I said, in the position now for about 9 years, growing. The last 3 to 4 years have really been our ethics and compliance journey. Just trying to hit everything we could everywhere we can, based on budget, based on limited personnel, that type of thing. So, yeah.
So, I'm kind of intrigued by the fact that, you said earlier, trade compliance into kind of corporate ethics is not sort of a typical feeder system.
Right.
And yet at this company, you recreated that feeder system for yourself again. You know what I mean? Like it sounded like in your previous life, you were kind of in trade and then you got into ethics, and you did that again at this company. How were you able to do that? Like, why was that not an impediment for you to ascend to this sort of arguably like sort of broader, farther reaching, mandate?
Um, yeah. So the ethics piece of it, I actually got into here at HCLTech. I got hired as a trade compliance officer. Did very well with that. My boss, the general counsel, saw what I saw or saw what I did, and basically said, "Hey, we've got these other programs." And the other programs at the time, he was building up a number of different compliance areas, but this particular program was anti-bribery, anti-corruption. And he said, "I've had, 3 or 4 people try to do this, try to get it off the ground. It hasn't, so I want you to." So I'm kind of in a victim of my own success.
Yeah. Hey, you're smart. Work more. Hey, you're smart.
Exactly.
Do this.
Right. Yeah. and it's as a project manager, program manager by trade, it's always one of those things where you don't know it when you start it.
Right.
But it's just been learning it as we go, making a lot of mistakes, and getting it right in the end, to where we finally got that program off the ground and went through the certification process for BSI, the British Standards Institution 37001. And then again, once that was kind of running smoothly, that was 3 years ago, then, we started looking at this whole thing with ethics, and we got involved in, not my team, but one of our other teams was filling out the Ethisphere World's Most Ethical Company questionnaire, and came to us with all these questions. And so we took it, and then, figured out from what they were asking what we needed at the company.
Right.
And we were fortunate to be awarded this year as one of those honorees 2020-24.
Amazing.
So,
that's amazing.
Yeah, very excited about it.
A lot of work to get that,
It is, but you're doing it, you're not doing it for the award, right? You're doing it because it's showing you, it basically was like a roadmap,
right?
Of, okay, this is what we got to do here, and here. This is how we do it. And it's been, it's been a journey, and it's a continuous journey, and very, very gratifying for both me and my team.
Yeah. I always think about things like this, like building out a program like this, or establishing, this ethics thing in a company. It's not like flipping a light switch. It's like starting a fire, because it's like this ongoing thing. But you also get that satisfaction of like, okay, cool, I rubbed these sticks together and now it's like warming everybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I've heard this a couple of times, that just going through that process is such, it's such like an eye-opening exercise, because now you get to, like you said, you have like a recipe to follow, and it forces you to do these things that maybe you would have done a little bit later, but they're usually things that can really move the needle in terms of building that culture of integrity that, you're shooting for.
Right. Yeah. And it's, most of us, I think, start out with not having a lot of background, and that's
exactly.
why that roadmap, it's not just, this is the process or this is the documentation we have to have in place, but I've got to learn this stuff. So now I got to figure, I've got to go and fortunately, I got really involved in kind of the education part, not training, but the education of myself, when I took the SCCE, the CCEP certification, last year in Nashville, and figured out how much there was really out there, because I didn't know. I mean, I was, I hope more people are not like me. But I just didn't know all of the information and the resources that were available to me. And that helped me do that. And then, the Global Ethics Summit, and then the SCCE conference, and just, I'm like completely into that life now. haven't written any books or anything like that. That's for you guys. I'm the in-house guy that's struggling to get one program after other. It's kind of like putting one foot after the other.
Yeah. So what do you think it was? Like, you went from the trade thing to the FCPA thing. And, I think you mentioned that, a couple of people had tried to get it off the ground and didn't really have the success. Like, the wheels were spinning a little bit is what it sounded like. Mm-hmm. What was it about your approach that you think helped to kind of get that established? And, that success obviously is what led to you kind of taking over this whole ethics thing. Like, what was it about? What was it about it? Was it like, hey, kind of the third time you swing it, you just got a higher odds of hitting it? Is it that like you maybe had a different mentality? Is it, what would you diagnose as kind of the key there that allowed you to have that success in building that sort of second thing?
It was really just perseverance. That's pretty much how I've succeeded in everything in life, is just not giving up.
Yeah.
If, it's like my lead person in India, I say, you come up to the roadblock, right? And you may go around it, you may go over it, you may go under it, or sometimes you got to go through it.
Right.
And that's what we did. There was some times where we didn't make friends because we were trying to put this into place. But the more we learned and collaborated, and of course, this is not me, this is a team, right?
Yeah.
Everybody having ideas, everybody having different ideas in different countries. Just all of the pieces, being put together, but without the perseverance, it would have been just too much. I mean, unless you just keep going when you know that you're not doing the right thing or the right place or the right time, just the perseverance. And again, like I said, a fantastic team. I mean, I've had a little bit of turnover on my team in the last 3 years. But we just keep seeming to be getting better. And it's because we're all from different places and we all think differently,
Yeah. It sounds like you've done a good job of like capturing that like potential benefit from this diversity that your team just inherently has.
Absolutely. Yeah. As culture in India, business culture in India is very different than here in the U.S. and we're an IT services company, so that's what we do. We do IT. I laughingly say that I'm probably the only person in my company that's not a computer science degree.
Yeah.
But it's taking all of those diverse opinions and sometimes thinking, that's a part about brainstorming, right? People are throwing ideas out and you're kind of going, well, I don't think that's going to work, but let me think about that. But just having kind of a global input from my team, with, ways of thinking that we in the U.S. don't, we don't operate that way. We don't think that way. And sometimes those are the best ideas that I've come up with,
Yeah, this concept of the idea meritocracy sounds so good, where the best idea should win out, regardless of who, presents it, whether it's you or it's the guy delivering sandwiches or it's the low man. Like, that sounds like a great, like, ideal, but it's really a hard thing to actually foster. A true idea meritocracy really only works when you have the diversity of thought around a table, which usually comes from different geographies, different backgrounds, different like levels in the organization. It only works when that diverse group all feel comfortable sharing their authentic idea and all feel comfortable pushing back on an idea from the boss or something like that.
Right.
You can spend a lot of time sort of talking about this concept, but like when the rubber meets the road, like when you're in the foxhole or in the war room or whatever, that's when the kind of proving ground is. As I'm really kind of, I thought what you said was really compelling and I think it's spot on. It was essentially like, how can I affect this broader culture in the organization if the culture of my team is not right? What was that like building that team? How were you able to really activate that culture among your team that then has, more than likely allowed you to have much broader impact across this, broader, culture of the organization? Like, what was your focus? How did you get these people from all across the world to really, gel together and really kind of cohese?
Yeah, and it's that's an interesting conversation because take, for example, India. I've got 4 people in India. Up until last year, all 4 of them were lawyers. And what we found out, obviously having the legal input into ethics and compliance is important, but it's not everything. And, that was when we started the team, we hired the people, we brought them on. And what we found out is that oftentimes lawyers want to do lawyer things, right? And ethics and compliance to me is more of a program management type approach. I mean, obviously knowing the regulations, knowing the laws of different countries, different regions is extremely important. But what we ended up doing, we ended up losing 2 people because they wanted to do things that were just specifically law. They wanted to do contract negotiation or litigation or those kind of things, and we couldn't give it to them. So Anu, my right hand person in India, who is also a lawyer, very experienced, we sat down and we said, okay, we've been doing this for 3 years. Here's kind of the tasks that we've been doing, and we're not anywhere near done, but a lot of the roles that we're trying to fill are the same type of work or the same type of, you're trying to get consensus from people, you're trying to get budget. And so what we actually did this year is, instead of just going back after lawyers, we hired, number one, an English lit major,
cool,
to be able to tell our story, to tell our story in documentation, in policies, to tell our story in mailers that we go out, our ethics mailers that we go out on a monthly basis. And it's already, I'm excited about it because all of a sudden I'm seeing her do, and she's very young, right out of college, loves to write and read. And so we brought her in, and then we brought in an analyst, again, a very junior analyst, to say, okay, a lot of what we do in areas, such as conflict of interest or business gifts and entertainment, right? A lot of that is analytics. Right. And so we have those 2 people now working to provide us the actual information instead of us trying to look at the broad HCL tech and try to figure it out. Now we're actually getting the data, and we can focus our time and our energies, on that information. So it's thrilling to have made that change to the team. The 2 people I have in the U.S. are both trade compliance people because they handle our U.S. regulatory, the military stuff and those kind of things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm very excited about the team we have now. We're working very hard to, like I said, they're just out of college, and we're working really hard to give them work that makes them happy, that satisfies them, and hopefully we'll be able to keep them for some time.
Yeah. Where did you get the courage? Maybe this is a dramatic term, but the courage to sort of go off script and kind of innovate your team with some diverse backgrounds. Historically, it's been, this is a kind of a stereotype, but like, it's just lawyers. We just need lawyers. But, I think like the next generation of an ethics and compliance program has kind of what you're talking about, has a diverse group of people. You maybe have some lawyers, you maybe have some, marketing type people that can do graphics and can do storytelling. You have some maybe other, analytical people who can help with, the data analysis and the data storytelling, stuff like that. I think that's absolutely where it's going. In 10 years from now, our teams are going to look way more diverse than they were, let's say, 10 years ago.
Right.
So was it just like a natural kind of like light bulb moment for you? Was it a kind of, like, how did you not stay stuck in the paradigm of like, well, I just need kind of like lawyerish people?
Because of attrition. It was, having two people say, and be honest, because we sat them down and said, okay, you found another job. I respect that. That's your right. And I wish you all the happiness. But, why is it that you don't want to stay here?
Yeah.
And they were honest with it and said, I'm a lawyer. This is where I want to grow.
I see.
And so it was, it wasn't a real light bulb moment, I guess. It was just kind of a common sense thing saying, well, to my other leader over there, saying, we have to change the makeup of our team if we want to try to keep them. So the other two had come, done 2 years, they're gone. India is fairly, especially with people that want to move around, it's usually a 2-year deal.
Yeah.
My boss, who is our general counsel lawyer, right? He kind of raised his eyebrow at me when I said, this is what I want to hire. And he said, okay, well, if you can make it work, then do so. And it has. It's kind of given us this whole new excitement to the team.
I'm sure.
Now
it's
instead
a new
of
thing for these guys. Yeah.
Yeah. Now instead of and I'm part of my role for my whole team is just the mentoring piece of it. Talking a lot to my seasoned lawyer that I have over there and saying, listen, we have to treat them differently. We have to talk to them differently. We have to, trust them differently than what we've done with the people in the past that have maybe have 4, 5, 6 years. Because it's just a different, they're a different generation. Plus now we have these two people that have totally different skill sets that may feel like they're alone
exactly right
on our team.
That's
so
the risk.
A lot of attention, a lot more time, talking, sharing with them, thanking them, appreciating them, those types of things.
What I love about this conversation is that like we kind of started out the conversation. You're drawing this parallel between like the culture on your team and the broader culture that you're trying to affect. Mm-hmm. And you've sort of created these circumstances where your team has had to learn this muscle on how to assimilate a diverse, generationally, age-wise, whatever, skill set wise, multiple diverse people that you've had to sort of adopt and like graft into the body that is your team. Mm-hmm. In doing that, in sort of building that muscle sort of internally for your team, what impact has that had in how you guys interact with the broader culture across these 60 countries that you're trying to affect? Has there been any kind of like knock-on effect, from that experience of bringing these new folks into the team?
It's actually made things smoother.
I bet.
For example, the person that our writer, if you will, has now taken over all of the writing of our mailers, of our notifications, even of our policies that we're creating now, our programs and policies, and writing them with not just a bunch of legalese, right? And so I'm reviewing these things after they send them to me, and I'm thinking, I really like that. We were doing something just yesterday where the lady had started talking about a garden, and how in a garden, if you want the flowers and the bushes to grow, you have to water them, you got to fertilize them. And I'm a gardener, so I don't want to geek out on you, but it just resonated with me that using different type of language and a different speaking voice is going to maybe click with somebody in a different way, or a whole group of people in a different way, than the kind of the legalese, the legal jargon, where here's a regulation. If you don't do this, you go to jail. You pay a fine. Nobody wants to hear that stuff.
Yeah, no one's reading, DOJ pronouncements before bed. They're reading
Right.
books. They're watching,
Right.
it's stories. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And what, it's such a it probably humanizes your group so much. It humanizes you to such a different degree because you're not leading with like this legalese. You're leading with stories and you're leading with these metaphors. And it's kind of putting the function in sort of a different light. It's framing it in a different way. And that I think can allow people to like interact in a different way. I mean, at the end of the day, we're trying to like change behaviors. That's what the entire job is. We want people to act in a high integrity way. We want to keep the company out of trouble. We want people to be able to run down the road of business like faster, right? That's what the true impact is of a sort of fully actualized ethics and compliance program. But like to the extent we're changing behaviors, I've never been able to like logic my wife into anything. You know what I mean? Not like it doesn't work,
Right.
But when we're convincing somebody, a story or a metaphor or a parable or something like that can really help people understand the true concept so much faster. I mean, at some level, it's like an efficiency and effectiveness thing, right? Like if they can understand that concept so much faster and internalize it, then the odds of them acting in accordance with whatever the goal is just a lot higher.
Absolutely.
When I'd love to hear how you've tackled this. I'm kind of nerding out on this. But what I found is that sometimes young folks, like it takes them a little bit longer to unleash. And like, I always find that like so much of my job ends up being like trying to make them feel comfortable, like, letting their light shine.
Right.
And I think when they come into an industry like this, where it's, this is broad brushstroke, all lawyers, complex regulations. These are all like high intensity words that in my experience, I've found younger folks who maybe haven't been in the industry or maybe are just kind of fresh out of college, they seem like a little bit more scared to like fully unleash. And so what has that process been like? And how have you sort of coaxed them out of their shell to where they can start adding this kind of impact? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely. And it's definitely a work in progress. So it's only been 3 months and 5 months that we've had these two new players on our team, right? And these are kids that the companies they came from, they didn't even use the Microsoft suite of products. So I mean, this is like tutoring, for tools and stuff like that. But what I've done, personally is like with the analyst, we were trying to determine how to track our mandatory compliance, our code of business ethics compliance, right, or anti-bribery compliance. And I went to him and I said, this is kind of the general information that I need. How would you put it together? So he did. He put it together in a way that I had to then go get a new piece of software onto my computer so that I could look at it. But it's encouraging them even when they miss the mark, which is something that I've always, I'm positive. I don't, I've been on the other side of that with bosses so much. So it's like, okay, here's what we have. Can we do this? Can we do this? And then instead of me just talking, asking them to tell me, how would you do this, right? And what would it look like? And it's I'm not a young guy, but I am thrilled with the interaction or the reaction that I get from these two new folks that I have that they're coming into a huge company. They both came from tiny companies, coming into a huge company where the whole structure of everything is just miles and miles high.
Right.
And for me to be able to say to them, I don't know as much as you do. I said, you are an expert in this area. And I've never had any, I don't have any pride around admitting what I can do and can't do. And it's the result is just, you see faces light up. You see people work harder, to do these things. So it's just, to me, it's thrilling. And after a lot of years in the workforce, for me to get thrilled about something, I know we made the right decision with picking, going outside of kind of the lawyer role, if you will, for our resources.
You're kind of a unique guy because you're clearly a kind of figure it out, get it done type of a person, over, around, under, through, whatever impediment is in the way. But, you also don't really seem like a know-it-all. Like you seem very open to other paths up the mountain or other ways to crack the nut. I've worked for people that are kind of the other way, and it's very frustrating because I'm a know-it-all. No, I'm just kidding. But like, I mean, everybody has ideas, right? Everyone's different. They have ideas, and like, just because, I'm the oldest person in the room doesn't mean that I have the right idea per se. There could be somebody new who maybe knows about a technology that I don't know about, or just has a unique idea on how to figure it out just because they're putting fresh eyes on it.
Right.
And you said something else that really resonated with me. I think the quote was like, I have no like pride in terms of like what I can and can't do. So where did this security and kind of who you are come from? Have you always been that way? Or was it kind of a process of like you understanding like, okay, this is kind of the position on the, baseball diamond I'm really best at, and this is my role. What was that kind of like? And how did you get to this point? Because I think leaders like you are ones that can really start to activate their people and really start to get this synergy, to use the classic buzzword, to get this synergy from the team and really kind of multiply the impact, which I think is just so important in a role like this, which typically everybody I talk to, fighting for budget, fighting for impact, they don't have the resources they need and so forth. So it just becomes increasingly more important to be able to activate that and, kind of make some hay with what you have. But it's also like a high intensity, function with a lot of pressure and a lot of like, a high cost for like getting it wrong, which I have just seen people tend to kind of fall into this backup style, which is usually less open and less, empowering. It's more kind of a tighter grip is where people tend to like, they tend to kind of resort to that type of a posture when like the heat is on or like the intensity is up. So how have you been able to kind of navigate that? I know this is like a large question. This might be covered in your biography. I don't know.
It's essentially who I am as a person. It's how I was raised, by folks, kind of blue collar folks.
Yeah.
My mom didn't work. She stayed home. My dad was, I just learned to be humble really was probably the key to it. But in my work life, I have failed at so many things before I succeeded. And part of that is because I've never been afraid to take on a challenge. But every time I've taken on the challenge, it's usually about something that I know nothing about, right? Like joining an IT company, knowing nothing about it and falling down on my face and getting back up. So I look at it, that way, is that, hey, nobody's got all the answers. Nobody's perfect. If somebody comes in and wants to be that way, they probably won't stay on my team very long. It's all about how we work together. But really, I think the key piece and even, going on today, it's not like I graduated from failing last year or 10 years ago.
Yeah, that's in my rear view. I won't fail anymore. Yeah, exactly.
Right. I still feel the sting of that, and I want to, I'll say managers and leaders. I'm a leader. I'm not a manager. I believe that leaders lead people and help them be better. But I don't. When I start something that I don't know, I know, okay, this is going to take extra work. It's going to take homework. And if I can take somebody that's 20 years old, 25 years old, and get them started on the path of knowing that, hey, it's okay to stumble.
Yeah.
I'm not going to rip your head off. I'm not going to fire you. We're going to make mistakes together. And because we're making mistakes together, we're going to succeed together. And so that's how I've always been. I don't know any other way to be, Nick.
Yeah. I that really resonates with me. It seems like I'll just speak for myself. When I'm new to something and I don't know what matters and what doesn't matter, I tend to think that everything matters. And I think like true expertise or true like mastery in any sphere, it's really like a game of editing, right? Like the best filmmakers are the best editors, like the best movies, that director maybe wrote the script, but he's definitely in the editing room because he needs to cut this thing away to really kind of get down to the core.
Right.
And I think the confidence to like cut the film, so to speak, comes from like a level of experience to some degree. But I'm saying on the early stage of it, you kind of treat everything like it's brain surgery when life is really a lot more like baseball. Like, how do you do something new without striking out? Like, how do you try something new and not fall off the bike? Like, it's just always going to happen. And so I'd love your like advice on this. I'm kind of like you. I think I can do anything. Like, I'll take a challenge I haven't done before. And I have the confidence to say, like, I think I can figure this out, or I can find the resources, or I can get the advice to like crack the nut and pick the lock. And like in the midst of it, it's very rarely like, the first time I swing the bat, I put, the bat on the ball and it goes out of the park. Like there's usually an iterative process of like failing and trying to figure it out.
Right.
What I'd like your perspective on perhaps is like, I find like I have that kind of mentality on the one hand, but then in the midst of it, if I'm at a board meeting or something, I really like am trying to consciously fight this, like, it seems like a natural desire to like be a little defensive in the midst of it, and I don't think that that's like constructive at all. I definitely, so how do you kind of balance that? Like if you're in the midst of trying to figure something out, something new out, when you've had this confidence that says like, I think I can figure it out. I figured everything else out in the past, but maybe it's taking a couple more cycles than you think, and you maybe have a meeting with a boss or, whatever. How do you comport yourself at that kind of a stage? You know what I mean?
Yeah, if I mean in the you talk about the position of the boardroom, obviously if you're part of the top leadership, you have to be able to make decisions, right? And based on what you know and where you're going with the company and those types of things. In my case, my quote unquote boardroom is we have an ethics committee, who's all of the CXO level suite, the HR head, the finance head, all these people, and I may present things to them, but then just like with the people that work for me, I get inputs, and they're part of running the company. I'm not, and so I get the input from them running the company. And it's I guess to me, I don't think about it. It's just a natural way of, you're a human being. You have your experience on the earth. I'm going to listen to you, and see if it makes sense. And sometimes it may not make sense to me. Sometimes I may say, well, I don't want to go that way.
Yeah.
Or if we go that way, it could have unintended consequences. But yeah, it's relatively easy for me because I've done this all my life.
Yeah.
And created programs that I knew nothing about. But again, all of it has been because I've had good people supporting me and guiding me, and sometimes telling me no, sometimes telling me yes.
Yeah, that's great advice. I mean, what you described is, again, just kind of an openness and a humility. I think if you have that openness and you have that humility, then you're not going to be posturing with some kind of a facade that says just wait a month, it's going to hit. And that also allows you to not like create dissonance in those conversations with, some kind of a, bringing some wrong energy. And it also allows you to get some more of that feedback. Man, this was so fun, Olaf. I appreciate you coming on, man. It's really a cool thing that it's really a cool thing that you're doing. And it's a really cool thing that you're building. And we didn't even get to talk about like the cultural like landscape you have to navigate, because that's a whole nother conversation, man. Like, how do I make these principles resonate with all these different groups in ways that they can digest it and they can ultimately change their behavior? That's a whole nother podcast, perhaps.
And that's an area that we're really focusing on this year.
Sure.
As we go in. So yeah, I'm excited. I'd be excited to come back and talk about that. It's everybody has a different experience. In my position, I didn't start out at the top, obviously. I started out at the bottom actually with kind of everything. And so I've experienced all the pain along the way, like I said, falling down on my face. So I've just learned that I don't know it all. And even if I think I have the best idea in the room, you give me another idea and I may go, hey, that's better than mine. And I don't have any problem admitting that.
Yeah.
A lot of people do. A lot of people have egos, but in this business, to me, there's just not a lot of room for ego.
Right.
When you're working with a team, everybody's doing different things at different times in different locations. You just got to be able to bring them together and get consensus.
Yeah. That first spot on the priority list is either going to be the mission or it's going to be our ego, and we all make that decision implicitly. You know what I mean?
Right.
Well, this was phenomenal, man. Your team's lucky to have you. I learned a lot. I appreciate your time and sharing so much of your advice and experience. We will see you next time.
All right. Thank you.